Welcome. We're excited about tonight's presentation. While we're allowing everyone to join us tonight, remember at the bottom of your screen is your chat button. And we're really excited tonight to be able to answer a lot of your questions personally. So make sure that you just go ahead and type. If you want to start now and tell us where you're from, we'd love to see where you're joining us all from. I'm going to start tonight. I think everyone might be getting on, so I'd just like to introduce the fact that we are here because we are insiders, and the name of our presentation is an insider's view of what our nutrition experts are doing with their own recipes, their favorite recipes, and their strategies that they share with their clients and their own families. So my name is Gilbert. I'm your hostess tonight. I am an owner-operator of 2 women's-only facilities, so you know nutrition is a hot topic in our clubs. I'm in the Tampa Bay area, and I'd just like to introduce both of our speakers tonight. Unfortunately, one of our speakers is caught in, is it a hurricane, you guys? That's running up through the middle of Atlanta and taking all of her electricity and internet with it. But tonight we have Sohaila and Trisha. And Sohaila, do you want to go ahead and start, introduce yourself to us, please?
Sure. I see a lot of you are jumping on as we go here. So I am Sohaila Digsby. I'm a registered dietitian. I'm also a fitness pro, and I combine the two and have done nutrition and exercise together for more than 2 decades. I'm also a mom of 3 kids, ages 10, 14, and 17 next week. And so we have a lot of food happening at my house because everybody's really active. Sometimes some of my friends say, you know, if you would just sit them on the couch with a bag of chips, you wouldn't have to cook so much and they wouldn't be so hungry. But that is not the way we roll at the Digsby house. And so I'm so excited. I'm also a cookbook author, so it's especially fun to talk about food. Trisha and I are both authors, so we want to show you some of our books. So this is the cookbook that has the recipe that I'll be referring to tonight. And this is the recipe. And you'll get a copy of the recipes, right, Anne?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to worry about that right now. But we'll be sharing some of those recipes with you and some of our tips and tricks. And I'm also a college professor at a clinical nutrition program, so I work with master's nutrition students. And then I have my own business where I run 2 times a year the Best Body Countdown, which is an 8-week program that helps people to be their best. It's kind of in order to replace like Biggest Losers out there with healthy, sustainable changes. And then I run a support group online all year round. So that's kind of what I do. So I'm a busy lady, but kitchen time is real important to me. So I'm so glad we get to do this tonight.
And Sohaila, is it easy for us to contact you? And if so, can we add all of your contact information?
Hello? Oh yeah, you're more than welcome. I'd be happy to hear from you all.
And everybody, I'd like to introduce Trisha. Hi, Trisha.
Hi, how are you?
But it's great to see you again.
Thank you. Great to see you. I just putting my contact info, my email is in the chat there. Great to see all of you. And I am calling in from Needham. I'm zooming in from Needham, Massachusetts. I'm a registered dietitian, a fitness instructor, a wellness coach, and an author. I wrote this book, Healthy Dividends, and it's available on the SCW website. And there's a free bonus chapter available on my website. I am also a mom. I have 2 kids. They are 14 and 17 and a tween, 14 and 11. And I also work at Northeastern University. I'm the faculty lead there. I help run the Masters in Applied Nutrition program. And I also teach nutrition entrepreneurship and healthy aging. And I lead and wrote the active aging nutrition certification for SCW. And just really excited to be here to share with you tonight.
Mm-hmm. Again, everybody, we're sorry that Melissa Layne could not join us tonight. But I'd like to start with a question. And the first question, let's go to Trisha with this question. Trisha, how do you incorporate healthy options for those in your household that are super picky eaters? Super picky eaters. Anybody have those? What are some strategies that you can share with us? Would you like to start?
Sure, I'll start. I think if you have picky eaters, it's very important to have them continue to try healthy foods. Don't swear off vegetables because they didn't like it once. The key is to keep exposing them. And what I did when my kids were little, they'd have little mommy bites. So can you just take one bite? We still do that now when we cook up something new, just one bite of this vegetable. So that's how my kids, they eat a diverse range of vegetables now, because it was all the effort put in, but everyone can put that effort in. It's not magical that they like vegetables. It was just patience and trying over and over again. And then kids do go through times where they don't like certain foods. So my kids at times didn't like bananas. So don't give up forever on bananas. Wait a little bit, a few weeks or a few months, and then bring them back in. One of my sons is going through that now with strawberries. He's not a big fan right now, but he's loved them for like all the years of his life, but now we're giving it a little break. But we have plenty of other fruit around. There's apples and grapes and melon and cherries. We have just all kinds of fruit available. So if they don't like something, then try something else. Sometimes you need to give certain foods a break, but we've handled the picky eating by just, celebrating those moments where they will try little bits of healthy food, and then eventually they'll eat more of it. But it's really having the patience. When I worked in school food service, the school nutrition program years ago, we learned that it could take 21 times for a kid to like a food. And that means a lot of trying and not giving up. And that's the key, is just never give up. We do a lot of batch cooking in my home, so that if someone doesn't like one thing, there's something else for them to eat. And I'll go into that in a little more detail later on. I just want to turn it over to Sohaila, and then we'll move along. But please put your questions. I see them popping up in the chat, which is great. And over to Sohaila.
Well, first of all, I think the younger that they are that you're exposing them, the easier it will be. So for those who have little bitties, this is your chance, because if they're older and if they're teenagers, it will be more tough to get their taste buds to adjust and to get them to be willing to try something. I had somebody tell me one day, you don't feed your kids kid food. And what she meant by kid food is kids menu food, just grilled cheeses, chicken fingers, and things that are on the kids menu. And I'm like, oh no, they just eat whatever I'm cooking. And they're like, what? How do you do that? And it really starts at the beginning, when you're first so careful as a new parent, introducing one vegetable at a time and all that, to not give up on those and continue to incorporate those. And, if you do have an especially picky eater, you can do some of those sneaky strategies where you bring them in. And that's a whole nother discussion. One of my favorite foods, and this is going to be in my recipe tonight, but I'll just highlight it, is broccoli slaw. It has broccoli, carrots, and red cabbage. And these are cruciferous. 2 out of 3 of those are cruciferous vegetables, which are known for their cancer-fighting benefits. You can get the organic or non-organic version. And one of the good things about this is I usually make it towards the end of the week. I'm a once-a-week shopper, and because I'm too busy to go in the grocery store every day. But some people love to do that because it's their outing. And if it helps you get your steps in, I'm okay with that. Just shop safe. But this gets a couple colors in, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But I also puree it sometimes and put into a spaghetti sauce. And you can do other things like that that are a little bit sneaky if you have picky eaters and you want them to learn to acclimate to some different flavors without maybe the texture. I will say, over a couple decades of working with families, and Tricia might speak to this too, we can usually combat some of the pickiness, but if it's a texture related problem, it's a little harder to address. Like if a kid is saying, especially if you're working with kids or even adults, if they're saying, I gag when I eat these certain foods, or they have specific sensory issues, I would encourage you, moms and dads out there, to not force, because that could make it worse. So if you do feel like that's your child and they really are so sensitive and picky, then you may want to consult a speech therapist to get some help, because I've seen some moms and dads who have kind of burn out their food relationship with their child by forcing and forcing before getting help. So I just wanted to mention that speech therapists are brilliant in helping you introduce new foods with kids who have some sensory challenges. But I don't really at my house, I'm a family sit around the table kind of cook. And so I don't like to do shorter order cooking or have people do all different meals. Every once in a while, I tell my kids, everybody's allowed to not like 1 or 2 things. Mom doesn't like 1 or 2 things either. So if it's that thing, then you're welcome to hop up and make yourself a sandwich or get over some of the leftovers. If it's your thing that we all know that you don't love, you're allowed to have that. But for the most part, one of the great tips that I got in my early years as a mom, and it was from a dietitian, was to put a spread of things on the table so that if a kid doesn't like the one thing that you're making, the main dish, they don't have to feel like, well, I'm just going to go make me a frozen pizza, and you don't have to succumb to that. You can have options. So if you have And I often put a bowl like on the table of cherry tomatoes about this size, or baby carrots, and that are just sitting out there, or cut up apples or grapes, just sitting out. So that way, if they say, I don't like what you have, I'll say, well, there's other options, and they can have some of those things. I also like whole wheat Triscuit crackers, because they only have 2 ingredients and they're real simple. So I might put a little bowl of those too. So if they don't eat too much of the main entree, I'm not succumbing to the short order demand, and I'm still giving them some different options, and at least trying to include one thing on the table that you know that kid likes, because you don't want them to feel defeated, and it can hurt your relationship as you want to have influence with them. So you don't want your relationship related to food to be a stressful thing every time they come to the table. So those are some of our thoughts on picky eating.
Ladies, would you say the same strategies would work for a picky adult eater? Right?
They're tougher.
They're tougher? How so? Tell us, share with us. How so?
I don't know. Do you think so, Trisha? It depends on if they're motivated to try new things. A lot of times they say, I gave up on that. I will say all of my husband's siblings have become much more open to variety, even trying fish and things they never tried growing up as adults, but they had to decide they were willing to broaden their taste buds. And so it took some of them longer than others. And they'd say, Tom's eating it, then maybe I'll try it. Well, so Layla cooked it, maybe I'll try it. So it's a little bit more about motivation and stubbornness sometimes.
Stubbornness for sure. Trisha, anything on that subject?
Thank you. And I think that it's important to ask the questions of, well, why don't you like vegetables? How were they cooked when you were a kid? And, you know, I remember when I was a kid, those blocks of spinach, and they were slimy, and the color of the spinach was awful, and it tasted bad. And sometimes the broccoli was like very overcooked. So it was like an olive green, and didn't really taste that great. And if people grew up and the vegetables were burnt or they were frozen or canned, they may have a different perception of how vegetables taste. So one of the things that I do with my coaching clients, if they're willing, is to commit to trying new recipes. And that might be, depending how motivated they are, once a week or once a month, once every 2 weeks, to try a new recipe. And it's really worked like a charm with adults. I had one guy in my program, I wrote about him in my book. He was in an 8-week program with me, and he came in and he was drinking a lot of alcohol and not really eating new foods. And he committed to cutting back on the alcohol and doing new recipes. And he bought a cookbook and he worked his way through, and he lost 15 pounds in the 8-week program. So I've seen adults change. So I know it's definitely possible. There has to be some kind of motivation factor. For many, unfortunately, it's getting that test where your blood pressure is high, your cholesterol is high, and the doctor's threatening to put you on medications. And then that tends to wake up a lot of people. But sometimes they just never learned how to eat very well, and they're just open to trying. So I think for adults that, yes, they can definitely change. And your taste buds change with time. You start to appreciate healthier foods once you start eating them and cutting back all the junk food in the diet. And that brings me to, Anne, there's an interesting question that came up. Do you see it from Dawn?
Dawn. Go ahead and read it.
Okay. Thank you. So it says, how do you get your moody teen girl to eat vegetables, and how do you curb that teen to not drink so much sweetened coffee? So with the vegetables, I think the small bites, just asking to just take a bite, maybe have her help or have her pick out the vegetable to cook, have her come shopping with you, have her go, open up a Bon Appetit magazine. And by the way, a lot of those are free through library apps right now. So check with your library. I did that with my own teen. We flipped through Bon Appetit and pick out a recipe to try together. Now for coffee, I have something interesting to show you. This is a pumpkin swirl coffee at that place that says America runs on. You know what? People know what I'm talking about.
See if they can fill in the blank, Trisha.
What was that?
Let's see if they can fill in the blank. America.
Can you fill in the blank? America runs or waddles on. Now,
waddles.
the pumpkin swirl coffee that they have right now, the large with cream, has all of this sugar. It has over 1,000 calories and all of this sugar. So when you eat one large coffee drink, you're literally drinking a cup of sugar, a cup. And there's 1,160 calories. If you eat that every day, you would gain 100 pounds at the end of the year. It's that real, unbelievable how much weight you can gain from having this. But even if you just had it for 30 days, we're talking about a lot of calories there. Now, I'm just going to pour it back on the plate so you can get that visual and see all of that sugar. Woo! So I think showing your teen all this whole, it's actually a heavy pile. If you show them things like that, then they'll, they can appreciate it more and actually see what they're drinking. Also with kids, I think tying it to whatever they're doing. So if they're playing sports, if you eat better, it's going to help you perform better in sports. If you eat better, you're going to do better on your tests. So what's important to them, and tie the nutrition to that, because it's going to help them in whatever they're doing, whether it be fitness or something using their brain. Your sugar is not good for your brain. It can affect brain volume. So we want to eat foods and do things that are, good for our brain. So it depends on what's important to her, and then using nutrition to say, well, you can be a better athlete on your team and you can have that edge if you eat better and you try these vegetables.
Ladies, you both mentioned a variety of recipes. Would you be willing to share with us tonight one of your favorite recipes and break it down for us? So Helen, would you start first with that?
I would love to. So I already showed you this. I picked this one because it's super simple and it has lots of different colors, which usually represent micronutrients, which are vitamins and things that our body needs. And it's super simple. Some people say, oh, I bet you eat salads all the time because you're a dietitian. Don't you get sick of salads? We make different salads at my house. They're not all just a garden salad, so we don't get sick of them. But this one is really quick, and it is an absolute favorite for all 5 people that eat at my house. So it's just a bag. This costs around the $2 mark. And this recipe calls for a half of a bag. So it's a half a bag. And I'm going to put it into a food processor. I'm not going to pull all this into the camera just to keep it easy, but I'm going to put it into a food processor. And so I've got half of a bag in a food processor. And you can write this down, but we are going to share the recipe with you, so don't feel like you have to. So about half of my bag is empty. And if you really like to measure, you can. But I'm happy just to kind of wing it and be a couple of these off if I must. Also, if you're a zoodle eater, this is almost as long, and it's broccoli. It's a little bit of a crunchier texture, but if you want to mix it in with your noodles after well steaming it, if you cut up your noodles a little bit, it'll almost look like a half of a noodle, and it'll give you a little bit of the carbohydrate you need from the noodles for fuel, and then also some of this. So that's a side tip. I use this every week. I buy one every week and empty it every week on something. If it's not this, it's something else. Okay.
How many colors are in that bag?
We've got 3 colors here. We've got red cabbage. I don't know if you can see that. And broccoli. And if you don't like broccoli, it doesn't taste like broccoli. So that's why it's another benefit. It just tastes crunchy. Really, it just, I know crunchy's not a taste, but you'll have to just go with me on that. And carrots. So these are all really good for you. Carrots and broccoli actually also have viscous fiber in them, also known as soluble fiber. And 5 to 10 grams of soluble fiber can bring your cholesterol down 5 to 10. 5 to 11 is actually the technical way. And that's your LDL cholesterol. It's the bad one that you want to bring down. So it works really well like a statin, but it's yummier and less expensive. Okay, so that's the first ingredient, is a half a bag. And I'm going to pulse it in the food processor in a minute. And it's going to be noisy, but I'm just going to do it one time. The next ingredient is 1 Granny Smith apple. So I washed it and got it ready. And I don't know if you guys have one of these, but they're really great. And if you have kids, they're more likely to want to eat apples, usually if they're cut up. And if they get to do it themselves, it makes it a little more fun. And so all I'm going to do is right here on my cutting board in front of me, and you got to put a little umph in it. If your kids do this, they're going to have to do it on a cutting board that's on a chair probably, because otherwise they won't have the weight to push into it. But and you can do it with a knife too. But what it does is it cuts them out into perfect 8ths, which makes it easy to pulse. But you can cut it yourself if you don't want to do it that way. So I'm just going to pull these out. Do you guys all have one of these? The well spent $5, y'all. Okay, so I'm going to just place these each into my...
Can you hold that up and show us a little bit? There it is. Yep, there it is.
And I'm just going to pop these into the food processor. And then lemon juice. Now, Trisha made a great point when she said a lot of times when we're growing up, we don't eat vegetables prepared well. And we're not knocking our moms and dads. They did their very best, I'm sure. But green beans from a can are nothing. They taste nothing like the green beans I make now. When I make green beans, I put the tiniest bit of butter, and I put the long, thin French green beans and some cashews after I toast them. And it is divine. And it's nothing like the canned smushy beans. And some people like those, and that's okay. But my same point is with lemon juice and fresh garlic and fresh lemon compared to lemon juice from a jar, which is very suitable and useful. But if you have one of these lemon spritzers, and I have two different sizes, this is a lime one and this is a lemon one. And I just put a piece of lemon in here that I already chopped that smells so good. I wish y'all could smell it. And I'm gonna drizzle it over the apples and broccoli slaw. So this is the top of my food processor. This is how it's gonna look. And if you've not used this before, make sure you put the blade in first, because once you put everything else in, if you try to put the blade on top, that's a bust, okay? And so right now I'm just gonna place this on the processor and latch it in, and then I'm gonna take this and squeeze it over the top of the apples. And if you've ever had apples, if your kids don't like apples because they start to turn brown, this is a trick that keeps them from turning brown, and it makes them like twice as tasty. It really does. It just gives them like a gourmet feel. And fresh herbs and fresh limes and lemons make everything considerably better. And they cost very little. Like this lime right here was 69 cents. And I got it on my grocery pickup today because they can pick out a good lime for you. No worries. You don't even have to go in to get that one. So the recipe calls for 3 to 4 teaspoons of lemon juice, which is just a little more than 1 tablespoon. And so it's going to take about a whole lemon to do that. So I've just put that in, and there's only 2 other ingredients, and neither of them need to be chopped. So I'm going to go ahead and put the top on this. I'll let y'all count to 5 while I make this noise. I'm sorry, there's not a silent food processor that I've ever heard of. And so I usually pulse it maybe 6, maybe 7 times. So I want you to see how it comes out. The apple is now kind of shredded like the broccoli slaw. So it's not leafy, which is easier for younger kids to eat and older adults who aren't having the best teeth because they don't have to grind the lettuce. It's easier to chew the crunchy stuff, believe it or not, than the leafy stuff. Does that make sense? And then the last 2 ingredients is a 1/2 cup of toasted slivered almonds. And sometimes I just grab my big bag of almonds that I have in the pantry. I have it right here. Well, here's when you buy the slivered. But sometimes I just buy the bag of toasted almonds that I already have in the pantry, and I pulse it in the food processor with the other 2. So if you don't want to spend the extra on them being slivered, you don't have to. But these keep for a while, and they're really good on salads. And so now that I've already pulsed it, I'm going to put this in. And the last ingredient is a 1/2 cup of golden raisins. And this is what this looks like. And these are game changers, by the way. I put these in my oatmeal every single morning. They taste like gummy bears. And I'm not kidding. I like them about 1,000 times more than regular raisins, which I really like too. And they both have great fiber. And raisins, again, have that viscous fiber that we talked about so that we don't have to go on cholesterol-lowering medications. And so I'm just going to sprinkle this in and then toss it, and then it's literally done. And so it's, how many ingredients did you guys notice?
Broccoli slaw, apple, lemon, lime.
No lime, I just showed you the lime, but yeah, lemon.
Almonds.
Yep. And golden raisins.
Golden raisins.
And that's it.
And it's a salad, but there's no greens, right? So variety and lots of
Yeah,
color.
the greens are just the broccoli slaw. So I'm going to show you what it looks like. And we don't have cameras from the ceiling like the Cooking Network, but it really is really tasty. Can you see it? And some of my kids like a little vinaigrette on it or a little raspberry vinaigrette, but it's very sweet with the lemons and the apples. And so it really doesn't need anything. And the lemons, if you toss it really well, the lemons coat the apples so that they don't brown. But I wouldn't make too much for 2 or 3 days later. I'd eat it that day or the next day because the almonds will get soft and the apples will turn brown. But again, you don't have to make too much. This serves, the 1/2 serving that I just showed you, the 1/2 bag, serves kind of a heaping serving for all 5 of us in our family. So this is my favorite. And like I said, one of the reasons it's my favorite is because this can easily be a pantry staple. This keeps for a whole week in your fridge, so it's really easy to put towards the end of the week if you're strategic. And Granny Smith apples, you can buy a bag of them, a 5-pound bag, and you don't actually have to hand pick them all because usually they're nice and good ones in those bags. So sometimes that's handy just to grab the bag and take it, and they keep for a while as well. So you should be able to utilize those. So the fat and the fiber is what you're going to get from this, and healthy sugars, no added sugars at all, just healthy fruit-based sugars that are going to give you energy. And then you can add it to any meal. So that's my favorite.
Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Trisha, what did you bring to the table tonight? What's your favorite?
Okay.
Can't wait
Well,
to.
thank you. So today I'm going to share for a moment, and you'll just get to see it. And that is the bean, veggies, pumpkin seeds, and rice dish. And there's a picture of it there. I'm going to show it as well. We're going to go through the ingredients, and you'll get this from SCW. I also have it in a guide that I'll let you know about, and I'm going to stop sharing. So let me tell you, in my home, we do a lot of batch cooking. So we tend to think of foods in terms of a grain or a corn or a potato, so a starchy carb, and that's about a quarter of the plate. And we made a big batch in the rice cooker this week of brown rice. Let me get a better view there. And so I have a big batch available of that. So I might make that one night, and then the next night I might do something else, but I have the rice on hand, so I'm not like cooking a lot at one time. Or one night I might cook a lot, so I have it for the next few days. Now, in this particular recipe, what I do is in a frying pan, I saute onions for about 4 to 5 minutes, and then I add cherry tomatoes in. There was a question that came up, do you have to add tomatoes to healthy dishes? You definitely don't have to, but it does add nice color. So in that recipe, I do, if you don't have a lot of time, to chop those cherry tomatoes in half before. Sometimes I'm so busy, I'm just chopping them while they're cooking, and that's worked for me because I'm juggling a lot. And so I cook that up until they're tender, just a few more minutes, and then I take that mixture of the onions and the tomatoes, and I put it aside. And oh, by the way, then I add in spinach, and you can add in as much spinach as you like. So if you have a 5-ounce bag of spinach, you can put that in. And I'm looking at the recipe, and I don't think I wrote down that spinach. So you want to add that to your recipe. But anyway, so I put that in. What's nice about spinach is that it cooks down really nice, and you can add that to like almost any dish that you make. It cooks down in a minute or two, and you get this really wonderful taste, and you get lots of different color, and the cherry tomatoes and the I'm going to show you in the end what it looks like, so you can see it's red onion that I'm using, that I use there. Now, once I cook up that onion, the spinach, and the tomatoes, I put that aside, and then in that hot pan, I toss in the pumpkin seeds, and I toast them up. So just push them around for a couple of minutes, and then 2 to 3 minutes. And then I put that mixture all together over the rice. And then this week I made a big batch of black-eyed peas, and you'll see that here. And dry beans are great now because they're inexpensive and they're so healthy for you. The fiber helps to lower your cholesterol. The fiber is so good. Oh, thank you for holding that up, Sohaila. The fiber is really good for your intestines. More fiber is so wonderful for your microbiome. So I chose, again, these black-eyed peas, and what I did with them, because they were dry, is I soaked them. So I soaked them for about 8 hours. You can soak them overnight, but I got up early one day and I just soaked them. So you put water over them in a pot, you soak them, and then first of all, you want to sort your beans and throw out beans that are shriveled or that don't look so nice. Sometimes there could be little stones. You want to pull that out, rinse your beans, cover them with water, and let them soak. And then when they're ready, that 8 hours or the next day, you drain that water off and then put in fresh water, and then you cook them. And the black-eyed peas, these took about just a little over an hour. You do it to your level of tenderness that you like, and then they're ready. So I have them for a few days to put with different meals. Now, this particular dish that I made, I don't have to use black-eyed peas. I can use pigeon peas. I can use black beans, cannellini beans. They don't have to be dry. I can use canned if I don't have a lot of time. The dried ones are the best for you because there are additives added to that. Fresh is best if you can get them. Sometimes that can be a little hard, but if you're using the can, you want to rinse and dry them. Now, I want to show you some other things that you can do. Now, with that mixture, you can flavor it now in different ways. So one of the things that I like is to have different spice mixtures available. So you could use some Italian seasoning, or you could use garam masala, Or you could decide to give it more of an Asian flavoring, and maybe you do some Bragg's amino acids or some those that taste like soy sauce, or you do some reduced sodium tamari and then some sesame seeds over it, and it can give it more of an Asian type of flavoring. And you can shake it up. You can put avocado slices on it and have it taste more like a Mexican flavoring. You could add salsa to it. So there's things that you can dress it up with. So you're not, if you eat it 3 days in a row, you're not feeling like you're eating the same thing. The other thing that you can do on these bean, rice, and vegetable mixtures, you can sprinkle a little bit of cheese. I like a nice pecorino romano or a feta cheese. And just, you want to use cheese as a condiment if you are using cheese, and not too much of it. If you're going low fat or fat-free, just make sure they're not adding a lot of junk when they take out the fat. I think that's important, the actual quality of the food. And if you're going full fat, just to keep the portion sizes really small of that. But just a couple of other, I'm looking at the time. We have about 9 minutes. I'm going to actually turn it back to Ann, because I know Ann has a few more questions for us, and I can show you some other things that I have out here as we go.
Oh, thanks. I think one of the biggest things that I'm thinking about right now are the high risk situations that we might be entering right now at this time of year. I heard someone on TV the other day say we've just entered the candy season. You know, Halloween and then Christmas and then Valentine's Day and then Easter. It's like a season of high risk. Do you have any strategies, quick little strategies that we might be able to use for ourselves, our families, and or our clients that you've used for years that have been just proven strategies when it's time to address these high risk times ahead of us? So Layne, you want to start with that one?
Sure. I think one of the best things is to make sure your tank is full so that you have good fuel going in. Because just like anybody else, if I'm hungry too often, I'm not going to make the best choices, right? Nobody makes the best choices when they're overly hungry. And if you go into the grocery store when you're overly hungry, you've heard not to do that. They set the end caps up to make a catastrophe out of that. So be careful not to do that. But just in general, if I plan ahead just a little, if I spend about an hour on Sundays planning ahead with protein and produce, I have a little triple P principle. Okay, it's hard to say triple P principle, but it's prioritize, protein, and produce. And that doesn't mean that we don't fill in the gaps with things like beans and brown rice and whole grains, because we know that exercisers need that fuel, and we hope you're all exercisers because that's really going to help you get through the stress of the holidays too. But having a full tank full of fiber and protein-rich foods in a healthy way, and it doesn't have to be meat-based protein, it can be plant-based protein like some of the things we've shared with you tonight. That's going to help you not have that blood sugar alert tank. I don't know if any of you drive a car when it gets to that light after a quarter tank. Some people think, oh, I'm about to run out of gas. And if you have a newer car, you can scroll down and it shows you how many miles you have, and you're really not about to run out, but you have this panic. Well, a lot of people feel like that when they get the slightest bit hungry and they grab whatever's in sight. And your body usually tells you, make sure it's sweet because your blood sugar is low. And it gives you this message just to run for anything sweet. So if you have those things on hand and your tank is not full, that's going to set you up poorly. If you go to a party where there's lots of options that are going to tempt you, I encourage you to eat something like a refreshing rainbow slaw or an apple in the car on the way so that you don't arrive really hungry, or even like a broth-based vegetable soup to be kind of warmed up on like you would at a restaurant. And then you get there and you can be the one that brings the most healthy option, so that if nobody else does, you know that you can have a bite or two of what they have and then focus on what you bring. And you'd be surprised. People are relieved when you bring something healthy because they were a little bit daunted by all of the heavy foods, and they needed, you know, I went to a party this weekend, a pumpkin carving party, and I brought a huge tray of sliced cucumbers, and they went like hotcakes. I mean, just salted sliced cucumbers. I brought some other things too, but those went the fastest. And it was kind of a relief for people who were eating all the other heavy foods to have something nice to crunch on. So keep in mind, you can bring some of the good stuff. What do you think, Tricia?
I think those are excellent ideas. Another thing that I think is really important is to keep it to the holiday. Don't turn it into a hollow week, a hollow month, or a hollow season. Keep it to the holiday. Halloween comes, if you have candy, be done with it and try not to make it, you know, have it over a lot of time. There's two ways to waste it: on your waste or put it in the waste basket. I don't think you should feel guilty throwing it away. Normally I'd say bring it to work, but most of us are home now. So it's something, you know, give it away if you can to whoever will take it, but don't feel bad throwing it out, because it's better off in the waste basket than than on your waist. Now, one of the things that I think is important to think about is mindful eating during this time, so that if you do choose to have candy on Halloween, slow it down, savor every bite, really enjoy it, and then be done with it after that. And I think mindful eating is key. So many people don't want to eat it. They try not to eat it, and then they eat it, and they're eating it too fast, and they're feeling guilty. I want to take the guilt out of the equation for everyone and enjoy it, but then get back to healthy eating at that next meal or snack. It's really important to do that. Getting back on track the next day is so much better than getting back on track 3 months from now. So get back on track as soon as possible is one of my strategies as well. And then during the season, if there's a lot of opportunities where there's heavy food around, maybe, and special treats, maybe you pick and choose a certain party. Yeah, your aunt cooked special pie that night and you only have it once a year. Maybe you are going to indulge that night, but maybe the other parties, you try to keep it super healthy. There's so many different strategies that you can have, but it's all really just planning ahead for what strategy you'll use.
I love the idea of it being a holiday and not the holiday season, the whole season. Sohaila, can you tell us if the pandemic has affected your day in and day out meal planning?
I would say it definitely has. And I've never been one to do too many convenience foods, but I've been more tempted to do it because I've been feeling some of that decision fatigue. Have you heard that phrase, decision fatigue? Where it's like, oh my gosh, I have all these people still at my house and they just finished breakfast and now they're hungry again for lunch. I know in the spring I was learning from home with the kids and working from home, and now I'm back, but I'm commuting more than I ever have. And so that's another piece. So I'm looking a little bit more at some occasional convenience foods or things that are somewhat done. Like I don't want someone else to do all my cooking, which would be takeout and restaurant and frozen foods, but I wouldn't mind if someone did the chopping of my broccoli, right? Or I wouldn't mind, like I made a kale, bean, and turkey soup this week, and it was to die for. I'm happy to share that recipe with you. And I brought some carrots. I wouldn't mind if somebody shredded my carrots for me, right? Or chopped my kale and I just sauteed it in a pan. I didn't mind chopping the onion, but you can even buy frozen onion and it's still really good for you. So I've gone to a couple convenience options like that. Another thing we did at my house with the pandemic is each of my older kids have a meal of the week and they get to pick it, but they have to cook it. And if it's a new meal, like the kale and white bean soup was a new one for our family. So my son and I cooked it together. And then last night, my oldest son picked spaghetti. And so he made that for the family and he double batches it. And like Trisha said, we double batch everything. And I actually have what I call a food file. And it's kind of a little cheesy term for this little section of my freezer where I file flattened Ziploc bags with after we make something. If we're going to double batch it, we'll eat it leftovers, but we might not want to eat it 3 and 4 nights. So we put it in the freezer. After it cools off, we put it in the freezer flat, and then it defrosts very easily like a wok. You just cut the bag off the outside, drop it in the wok, put on a top and let it steam through, and then it's cooked with just one pan. Or you can do it in the microwave in like a 9x13 if you can get it to turn in your microwave. So simple things like that. I've definitely relied on my food file, and I've definitely relied on having the boys do some of the cooking since they're older, and my daughter who's 10 does some of the chopping. And I have found too an encouragement to parents. I know kids don't really love to clean toilets and sweep floors. I realize that, but they jump at the chance to food prep. And so I have this cheesy little board I'm going to show you. And it's literally like a Target $2 board. And on one day of the weekend, I write some things that I want to be prepped. And I put a little checkbox by it and they put their initials in it if they did it. And I just look for everybody to pick one thing. So it might be like 2 cucumbers, chop them into little slices so we can have them in our lunches. Or it might be carrots, peel them and slice them. And so I just have a few down and the kids know it's sitting on the island. And at some point of the weekend, they need to do their prep responsibility and they're more likely to eat those foods. Actually, they eat almost all of it while they're making it and we have to start over, but it's a good thing. So that's something I encourage you to do if you do have kids, to get them involved. They are much more likely to eat a cucumber if they're the ones who peeled it and sliced it. They're much more likely to be proud and bring it to school. And if someone picks on their veggies, they're like, I did this myself. So they're not going to be as offended. So those are just some tips that we've had over the pandemic. Get a little teamwork going.
And great tips. I think that they're going to last much longer than 2020. So thanks for sharing. Trisha, anything that you feel as those changed since the pandemic?
Well, one thing that changed a lot, especially in the beginning, but now that the numbers may be ramping up, this might happen again. I was trying to really limit the shopping trips to make the food last till the end of the week, so I didn't have to be at the supermarket. And you want to prepare things like, or buy things like cabbage or winter squash. There's a spaghetti squash here that'll last till the end of the week and beyond. So there's always fresh vegetables available. And then things like strawberries and blueberries, plan that toward the beginning of your week because those tend to not last throughout that whole week. The apples and oranges will last till the end of the week. So strategize how you shop so that you'll have fresh fruit and vegetables throughout the week. And then my kids they're in a hybrid model and they're home some weeks with me, but I'm in work working on projects all day. So we do a lot of the batch cooking. So I'll show you some examples. We have a batch of broccoli available. So if they have to serve themselves lunch, they know they have to pick a vegetable and a fruit. And then in my home, raw vegetables are really big. They love to eat with red peppers right here. And then like certain things I buy that are convenience, like the baby spinach. And also I have some of the slaw here. And I don't generally put mayonnaise on that, but I'll put nice dressings on it. And then these happen to be baby carrots that we bought. They'll eat those, and so will I. So keeping some of those items available and then planning ahead so that, we're not cooking all the time. So we'll cook a few times a week, but then in between we have the batches of food available. So, when we go tonight, I'm probably going to have the rice. And this is a turkey dish that we made, what's left of it. It's sauteed ground turkey with there's onions and tomatoes in there. So I'll probably have the broccoli and the rice and the turkey tonight so that it's easy. We already cooked it. We don't have to cook tonight. That leaves me more time to get fitness in too. So I think it's important to plan ahead. I put together a guide that has the recipe I spoke about tonight, but also how to batch cook, how to plan this. And I also have a weekly planner in there. So I'm just going to put that in there if anyone's interested in getting that guide. It's free. You go to my website and with that link and you can download that and have some recipes in there as well. But I think the batch cooking really is so key for if you're looking to lose weight, if you're looking to stay healthy, if you're looking to save money, it does all of those and more. And for your immune system, it's great because you have all this healthy food available.
So you don't get caught in the fast food frenzy, right?
Right, exactly.
We have about 2 minutes left, and I know that there's a couple questions, but so here, how would you like to end this today? What would you like to leave us with as far as your expertise and your favorite strategies? And I'm going to
encourage people. I have a little cheesy poem. Trisha has her cheesy hats, and I have my cheesy lyrics. So one of my lyrics is, it's a little rap. It's oats and beans and nuts and oats and beans and nuts. And I say it walking around my house so that kids aren't scared of those. Because if you're doing various diets, you might be tempted to think that those aren't good for you. And it's really not those that get people into trouble. Look, she's got oats and beans and nuts right there. So that's one of my little raps. And another one is eat something red. This is when you think of your plate. When you're thinking how to plan your plate. Eat something red. This is not a rap. It's just a rhyme. Eat something green. A healthy, fiber-rich carb. And lean protein. So that's your plate. Something red from the red, orange, yellow family. Something green. A fiber-rich carb, and a lean protein. And so it doesn't have to be a meat-based protein, but you want to make your foods that way. And that fuels your tank for good exercise. It fuels you so that when somebody comes by with a thing of donuts or something, you're not as tempted. And I do agree with Trisha that you should enjoy the holiday and that savoring things is part of wellness if you can strategically savor slowly. So that's another one of my silly, you heard my triple P, this is my triple S, the strategically savor slowly. So you can have it, but do it mindfully, like Trisha said. Don't just gobble it up and feel guilty. Instead, place it on a white backdrop on a nice plate and eat it slowly and don't shame yourself for it. It's the binging that makes us feel shameful, and often it's the excessive restricting that makes us want to binge.
And I wanted to add in, there's a question that came in if I'm stressing starchy veggies over non-starchies. No, in fact, stressing half your plate should be the non-starchy, like the broccoli and the peppers and spinach, and then a quarter of your plate, a portion of grains like a brown rice or like a millet, like a potato, small portion. I think we should include it because of the healthy nutrients in there. If you're looking for weight loss, keep the portions small. So no, I'm really pushing a lot of non-starchy vegetables for sure. But in that other part of the plate, so half your plate, vegetables, a quarter whole grains, and that's where I would put a potato if you want it. And then the other quarter of your plate is the protein source like fish or beans or chicken or turkey. You want to limit the red meat. So I just wanted to make that clear. In my book, I actually have a picture of a plate, and Sohaila has a portion. You have that great portion guide too, that your portion plate.
Yeah.
So I'll just show you. There's a picture of it. Half the plate, vegetables, a quarter carb rich, and a quarter protein. So hopefully that made that a little more clear. But great. Oh, there it is. Excellent.
We both agree on that for sure.
Yes. Yeah. Good question. I'm glad that you asked that so we could clarify that. And any other question? Oh, I want to end with the rainbow. So you can see it in the back here. One of the most important things is to eat the rainbow. That is really key. Try to shop for the rainbow. Try to get all the different colors in. And that's so good for your immune system and for overall good health, the health of your skin. So really important to aim for eating the rainbow. To eat it, you have to shop for it.
You may have noticed we haven't told you too many things not to eat. If you fill yourself up on all this good stuff, you don't really have to worry as much about what not to eat because you're fueled well on the good things that are fueling your immune system and your fitness and your skin and your heart and all that good stuff. So we hope you feel inspired after this 45 minutes with us to fuel yourself well and to finish this 2020 year strong.
I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Thank you to our wonderful guests, and it's kind of exciting to me that they both were saying and reinforcing each other's strategies. So it makes me feel comfortable about eating and really knowledgeable about knowing what should be on my plate. So thank you so much, both of you, for joining us. And everybody, have a wonderful holiday season. I look forward to seeing you at SCW live streaming.
Thank you, Anne.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.